Hey guys, Stealth here and welcome to a bit of a different type of Wargame video. This is going to be more of a tactics slash what the hell went wrong video. I am playing Cesare Abate 22 on Death Row. It's a 30-minute game, destruction, and we're going for 2,000 points. Now, I completely won this game, and I'm not showing it off to show, wow, I'm such a good player, because I'm absolutely not. If you want to have a good player, have a look at Blitzwar. I'm going to analyze what Cesare did not so well. What he could slash should have done different. He's a somewhat newer player, and it is going to show. I'm going to be using Epic Pen. It is a nice little app that you can download. I'll link to it down below in the description in case you want to have it for yourself as well. Because it allows me to do things like this. Just highlight stuff on the screen. Now, Death Row. Generally quite focused on this town over here in the middle. You got all these nice little building blocks, and it is going to mean you need quite a lot of infantry. I saw this map, I thought, okay, I'm going to bring a deck that I'm experimenting with right now, which is USSR motorized. It's going to give me Spetsnaz and BTR 90s. It's going to give me Motostrelki 90, which are really quite capable, especially when it comes dealing with vehicles. Ideally, of course, I would have VDV, but this is where we're at. What's he bringing? First up, I'm seeing something that I don't quite like, and it's this CV. I don't see any reason to bring a helicopter command unit. Why? A helicopter command unit cannot be hidden. You cannot park it inside of a tree line, and that means that if I get a reconnaissance unit nearby, I will spot it. Now, this means that a helicopter command is, I'd say pretty much without exceptions, bad. They're just not that useful. Sure, you might be able to make some use of it because they have really good optics now for some reason. Beyond that, not really. So, swap out your CV and make sure you get an infantry CV, or you get a command vehicle in the form of something that's wheeled, tracked, what have you. Hide it in a tree line, and if it's infantry, hide it in a town if you have to. Next up, he's going really, really heavy on the anti-air. You don't need that much. Especially not early game, unless you're expecting some sort of massive airstrike. It's possible on Death Row, I've seen it happen, people starting up with a lot of airstrikes. So in that case, maybe it just happened to him, but you don't need this much. You don't need a lot of Pip 3s, you don't need the Patriot right from the get-go. If you really want to use more than one anti-air unit, I'd say use 2 Pip 3s, but even that is quite the investment. The Patriot, as nice as it is, has the problem of not being able to kill most aircraft with one shot unless you get a critical hit. And the problem is you don't know if you're going to get that critical hit. So right from the get-go, he's over-invested in his anti-air. And on top of that, if he were just to pick the Patriot, it cannot deal with any kind of helicopters. So that's a bit of a problem. Now I am seeing a V150 over there. Most likely with seals. There is a couple of Humvees coming up as well, and a command truck, or rather a command infantry unit inside of a truck. I'm not a terribly big fan of the M35 because it doesn't do very well off-roads, but it is an option for him to be able to hide his CV over there better. He's also starting out with a longbow. There's a little trick in Wargame that most of the veterans will know at this point. If you hover your helicopter over a tree line, it is going to immediately start in the air. And as it does that, it means it doesn't have to go through this whole takeoff animation and then to start moving, which saves you a bit of time. Not that the Apache is a slow helicopter, not by any stretch. It's doing 200 kilometers or 280 kilometers at top speed. So it's not a slow helo, but it can be beneficial to speed this up. What I'm also seeing is no units here on the left, nothing. This means that he might be able to cover everything from the town. But if he's not, and if I rush a bunch of vehicles along his line here, of course I'd have to go by on the, or beyond the Apache. If I rush a bunch of units here, all that's stopping them is a bunch of units that he's going to have to still buy. If he even knows that they're there. So always try to have something on this side. Now, his Patriot, almost fortunately for him, is stuck in the mud. And for some reason, I'm seeing a lot of his vehicles go off-road. It's like he suddenly went, no, 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 no. I'm not going to face the KA-52. Which I understand, because the KA-52, my KA-52, is taking down his longbow. Without the longbow, he's blind. Because from his perspective, this is what he can see. So he saw a bunch of vehicles over there, and he saw the KA-52, and now he cannot see anything beyond the KA-52. The problem, in this case specifically with the Patriot, is that the Patriot is great against airplanes, except for that lack of killing power, but it cannot shoot at helicopters. I, however, can target radio sources, radars. This is potentially really dangerous for the Patriot. But a KA-52 is not likely to start dealing damage against all of this stuff. So even if there is a KA-52, you just shrug and you keep moving. Because at this point, you're extremely exposed. Make sure that you get at least to this building so you have a foothold. And from there you can move out in this direction, you can try and move out in that direction, or you can use the tree line for cover and potentially flank around. But just sitting out here, now you're kind of asking to get bombed. And keep in mind that I don't know about all your anti-air, all these nice anti-air systems that you have. I don't know about any of these, but I can see all of your vehicles now, so you're kind of given away what you have. And beyond that, I think he doesn't have a whole lot more. He's not buying any more vehicles. What I do really like that he did is this. Over on the side, there's a CH46 Frog, and it's going to drop off some Reconnaissance Infantry. You don't strictly need a helicopter for this, but it can be working. In this case, you could also have the helicopter just go all the way over there and start dropping off stuff there. But then again, I don't exactly know where this is going just yet. So make sure that you get to the buildings, because now that I know that your stuff has been delayed, I'm not stopping. Which means if I drop off, let's say, on this line, I can fall back if I have to. But if he's going to have to move up, he suddenly has, let's say, this position. If he has to fall back, he has this. So he doesn't have that many buildings, whereas I have this whole town. So all of this is mine, essentially. And he can only fall back to these little buildings, which, making matters worse, are sometimes spaced out a bit too much. So that if you want to get from this building to this, you're going to have to cross the road. You know, that road that a BTR-90 is looking down on. The BTR-90, which is capable of dealing with infantry very quickly, and transports with moderate effect, using that TA-72 autocannon on it. Now, something that he's also sorely lacking is any kind of offensive firepower. He has a bunch of infantry. I'm going to get to the composition later, but I'm not seeing anything that can deal damage. The Humvee has a machine gun, it's an M2 Browning, it's not going to do anything against my BTRs or BTR-90s. So you need something in this group that's capable of dealing damage. Without that, these BTR-90s and BTR-60s even are going to roll all over you. And that's not even talking about the infantry. So make sure you get the buildings, make sure your initial force composition also has something that has a bit of offensive firepower. You can go with an LAV-25 if you don't have anything else, because it is just as fast as most of your wheeled vehicles. This is the exception, this mechanized vehicle, because it's on tracks, it's a little slower. So make sure you have something that can deal damage. In the US case, they don't have that many motorized options that have both a modicum of armor and a nice speed. So something like an Ontos would have been fantastic here, because the Ontos sitting there, it just mops up whatever I happen to have in the street. This position here, it shoots right along this road. And it is sometimes a little tricky to find that exact position over there, so just have a unit over there, press T for targeting, and try to draw a line and see how far you can get. If you can get all the way there, then perfect. If you see a broken line, then that means you cannot target there. So you might have to reposition your unit. Alright, let's move on. His Patriot, in precarious positions here. Really, really precarious. Can I see it? No, not yet. The KA-52 is hovering low. It's kind of hovering inside of a tree, but let's not dig into that too deeply. If this K52 was hovering high, I would probably be able to see it. But I can see his Eyehawk, and I know that this is a threat. So this is something that the K52 is definitely not going to get close to. Now I can see some of his stuff, he cannot see anything of mine. Nothing. He needs to start offloading infantry now. Because as he's moving into this town, you don't know what's in, for example, this block of buildings. And sometimes you can just, like say, from these two houses here, you can get a shot off right between these other two, this one and this one. And you can just immediately wipe out this vehicle and potentially the assault pioneers or assault engineers in them. So drop off early and then walk your infantry over. It's a safer way of going about it. The way he's pushing in is quite dangerous. Now I'm trying to get my reconnaissance over to the side. And seeing as he has no recon units on this side, he doesn't know. Again, let me show you what he can see. He cannot see the sniper team, that makes sense. It's a really difficult to see unit. You need a good recon unit to counter that. He can see, effectively, 4 units of mine. That's 4 combined units, let's say. So he can see these BTR-90s. He can see that there is something moving from building to building. He can see that there is something shooting from this building, and he can see that there's Gornostrelki 90 in there. What can I see? I can see a lot more. I can see his interior, and I know it's all clustered. I know that this means he's invested quite a lot of points into his interior, because this is 280 points out of his initial starting budget of 1,000. And keep in mind, for 1,000 points, you also have to buy your initial CV. You also have to buy your fob. So that's about 200 points gone. This is another, let's say 280 points gone. I now know that he only has about 500, maybe 600 points in combat capable units somewhere here. I have more. I have more points in units. And I already have a CV here. Now, much to his credit, he also put his CV in the 4-point zone, not the 2-pointer. This is destruction, not conquest, so you want to get as much as possible, even if it is a bit more risky. This way I know that I don't have to worry about as many combat forces as he does, because I'm probably going to have more firepower than he does. And more firepower that covers more different areas. And I mean that in 2 ways. One, I have a concourse and Igla team here, so I can deal with aircraft that might be coming up. And at the same time, I can deal with vehicles that might come down the road. That's the concourse team's job. And the concourse can also shoot down this road. And let's say that there is a nice tank going up this road. I can get it into the side. And the side is always the weakest part of a tank. So try and get some form of HGM here and an Igla here. Or any other kind of interior. My mistake on this side is that I don't have anything else. I got the transports here, the BTR-60s, but if something the lines or the likes of a tank or one infantry squad walks up here, I have a problem. Because I cannot stop that with the units that I have on this side. So my mistake here is I don't have enough stuff. I need to get more units. Now, at this point, I'm wiping out his units with the BTR-90. So what you can see happening here is that one of his V-150s got destroyed. This is also going to wipe out more of his reconnaissance. So again, he can't see anything of mine. He doesn't know where my units are beyond his last known information. So he might remember that, yeah, there was some sort of armored vehicle shooting me down the road. But that's the only thing he might know. And you're busy enough playing Wargame as is. You can see the Gornostrelki, and he has the assault engineers going after the Gornostrelki 90. My Gornos are in trouble. His M113A3, it's a fairly heavily armored version of it, has an M2 Browning, but is not helping. Where is this vehicle? It's back here. It cannot shoot through these buildings. A vehicle like this can definitely be dangerous, because a unit of infantry can only use 2 out of 3 weapons at the same time. So in case of my... Let's see if I can highlight this. No, not really. In the case of my Gornos, I can fire the AK-74 and I can fire the PKM, or I can fire the AK-74 and I can fire the Metis M, my HGM. I cannot fire all 3 at the same time. And this means if I am engaging the assault pioneers or the assault engineers or what have you, I cannot also be shooting at the vehicle. I'm going to have to micromanage this unit by clicking on it and telling it to explicitly kill this. After that's done, the Gornostrelki are going to go, there's nothing else to kill with my missile, I'm going to go back to my PKM. They cannot do both at the same time. So in this case, my Gornostrelki are heavily engaged with the assault engineers, and that gives the M113 an excellent opportunity to deal even more damage to them. They're already shaken. Getting shot at by an M2 Browning is definitely not going to do their mood any better. It's not going to do their mood any favors. So when you see this, try to get your vehicles to a better position and make sure they're actively doing something. If you don't see this icon that says, hey, I'm shooting something, then your vehicle is probably out of position. And you can just click it, hit Q, which is attack move, and click anywhere to make sure that it moves out of a position where it cannot fire to a position from where it can fire. As for the rest of his units, he has Navy SEALs here. Excellent choice of unit, especially inside of a town because the grenade launcher is going to kill my infantry really quite quick. But there is a bit of a problem. The Navy SEALs are a great choice, but don't have a lot of range. You need to be aggressive with them, you need to be pushing in. They have, with that Hawk MM1, their grenade launcher, 455 meters of range, maximum. My Spetsnaz have 525 meter range. And I have an RPK-74 that does 770 meters, which kind of cancels out the Stoner 63 for 770. So I can fire at you from over there where I was, with the RPO Reese, which is really deadly against infantry. You cannot return fire with the Hawk. Now in this case, you could argue, well, he should pull the Navy SEALs back anyway, because at this point, he's not going to win anyway. Get them out, keep them alive, and use them at a later date. You could also make the point, no, just push forward, get into this building, because from here, you can definitely use a grenade launcher, and at least you'll get some damage out on the Spetsnaz. I, in this case, would very much be in favor of the Navy SEALs pulling back. Because if you push into this building, then I got a nice surprise for you. It's these two vehicles. These two guys have a grenade launcher and they have an autocannon, and they can use both at the same time. Which means I will eat your Navy SEALs alive. I will kill these guys very, very quickly. You cannot damage the BTRs anyway. And I'm just going to run right over you and then move on to whatever else you happen to have. His other choice of infantry here, light rifleman, not a great option. Because the Super Dragon needs a bit of range to actually be useful. A unit like Standard Riflemen, or ideally Rangers, would be much better. You can find the Rangers in the Recon tab. The Light Riflemen, I would probably put them, let's say, here. Because they can cover quite a bit of this road. I'm not sure if they can hit this intersection, but let's just say they can command this zone of control. So any vehicle gets too close, or any vehicle moves here, and keep in mind, if it's going on the road, you will hit it in the side where it's weakest. This is a much better position for the light rifleman. Beyond that, he doesn't have any fire support. Wargame is all about fire support. Your infantry is your frontline unit, and it's backed up by other stuff. So it's backed up by BTR-90s in my case. If I need something to get rained on by helicopters, I got two Mi-8s standing over here, waiting for action. But because I know that he has anti-air over there, I'm not using these as fire support. But they're an option for a later date. Am I already making moves? No. This is a mistake, by the way. I'll cover that in a minute. I'm not yet making moves to deal with these things, because right now I don't care. I'm not trying to do an airstrike. I'm not trying to use helicopters. I don't care about your anti-air. I can keep an eye on it, I can spot it, and I can kill it at any point that I see fit. So right now, I'm not worried about your expensive anti-air units. In fact, I like him having expensive anti-air units because they're not helpful. They're not actually doing any damage, they're not even in concealment. Have them sit there. Have them focus, or have him focus on the Navy SEALs and light riflemen. And I will start focusing on a way to start killing these, because once they're all dead, that's when my airstrikes are going to come in, and that's when these helos will murder your infantry in a hurry. Anyway, fire support. Make sure that your units have some form of fire support, and in this town, it's not great. It's not an easy thing to do. By the way, here's the BTR-90s killing the Navy SEALs. And now I have something to worry about, because now the light riflemen are going to make a push on my BTR-90s. You can see the BTRs are trying to deal as much damage as possible. They are taking a hit, and they're not quite dead. Or at least one of them is not quite dead. The other one's perfectly healthy, and I'm doing so much damage so quickly, the light riflemen die. And my BTR-90 is alive. This, however, is the cue for me to leave. Because I very much value these BTR-90s, I want them to survive, so I'm immediately pulling them back. And I know that from here, the light riflemen have, let's say, about this effective field of fire with their missile. Up to, of course, the building there. So they can hit about, let's say, this area. They cannot hit me here, so I'm safe. I can pull the BTR-90s back, I can make sure they're repaired, and I can use them to push at a later date. I've relocated my Spetsnaz to deal with his assault engineers, because my Spetsnaz are far better capable of dealing with that than they are of dealing with, than the Gornostrelki are. I've pulled my Gornostrelki back into cover to use them and heal them up. I already got logistics units coming in for both the BTR-90 and the wounded Gornostrelki. At this point, I'm going, cool. I have the light riflemen where I want them. I got more light riflemen over there. I got my Spetsnaz mostly healthy. I can use these to start killing the infantry. But there is an M113 here. And I do need to kill that. So I'm going to start swapping buildings. I'm going to get the Spetsnaz going forward, because there's infantry to kill here. I'm going to tell other infantry that's much more capable of dealing with it, to start dealing with this thing, if I find it a threat. Right now, it's not that much of a threat, it's just kind of sitting there. Spetsnaz VMF, my recon, is moving up. Now, over on the other side, we do still have that recon unit. He's definitely trying to drop something behind my lines, and I'm not defending it, so well done to him. This is also a great moment to discuss this. You can see I have a command infantry unit. I have the command infantry in cover. I do not have the MI8, their transport, moving away from the CV. So I'm basically advertising, hey, this is exactly where my CV is. All you need to do is drop a bomb on it. So this is a massive mistake on my part, and it's not the first time I've done it, and it's not going to be the last time I do it. I need to start making a practice of dropping these guys off and immediately having the chopper fly away, so that he doesn't know that the CV's over there. He has to go and look for it. I'm constantly also bringing in new stuff. I already got another group of Spetsnaz coming in with another BTR-90. I know he doesn't, well, he isn't likely to have much on this road. And I also have a couple of Nonas coming in. I got logistics coming in. I'm trying to get more and more and more stuff into the battlefield. I'm not seeing him do the same thing beyond this quad stack of mortars. This is a great unit to call in. Great unit. 4 units that deal 4 HE per shot. Of course, it's going to be a little less when you're firing at a building. They're going to deal quite a lot of damage. And they can make my life, especially Spetsnaz, quite annoying. Speaking of the Spetsnaz, I've now completed my rotation. The Motostrelki are moving forward, keeping up the suppression of the infantry, and the Spetsnaz are just happily murdering one squad after another. I've completely bypassed this guy because he's not a problem. I'm also using the Gornostrelki now to start hunting high-value targets. So the Gornostrelki over here are taking out the anti-air units that I have been keeping spotted so far. Spetsnaz standing by to deal with the other light riflemen. They're still using the RPO, and in this case you might be wondering, why are you seeing one firing the RPO and the RPK at the same time? I thought you just said you can't do that. Correct. This is 2 different squads firing 2 different weapons. I have 2 squads in here. One squad is using the RPO, the other squad is using the RPK machine gun. So the RPO is kind of doing the wrong thing and firing at the Humvee. It can do it, it's just not really effective at it. It should be the RPK that's firing at the Humvee, and it should be the RPO that's firing at the infantry. But anyway, you can fire both weapons, and you can see that they're probably not firing the AS Viale because it's not in range. Gornostrelki here mopping up another group, or another anti-air unit. Here comes his mortar fire from the M106s. The BTR. Can I even see that unit? No. I have no idea that the transport's still there. What can he see? He can see that the Gornostrelki are disappearing every now and then. You can see a BTR 90 dashing forward, killing off the Patriot, so his NTR is gone. Almost all of his infantry has been killed. None of mine has been killed. Well, some of the squad members have, but beyond that, not that bad. And overall, he is going to be losing this fight really, really badly. What he should have been bringing in is a lot more infantry and a lot more fire support. If he had established a line of infantry, let's say here, here, and potentially... Is this one block? Yeah, it's one block. So here. Then back them up with the mortars. I could have had Spetsnaz do some damage against, let's say, the guys in this building. But then immediately comes the mortar fire onto the Spetsnaz. So what do? I shift my Spetsnaz back. I go into this nice little block. And immediately the mortar fire goes, ah, that's where you are. And I keep getting hit, and I keep getting hit. And you can very slowly drive somebody backwards like that. The way that he was going about it was making it really quite difficult for himself by not bringing infantry, by not bringing anything on the front line. He's now bringing in Blackhawks, but I've now done so much damage, and I've even captured his logistics, that he's completely lost the spirit to fight. He's completely lost the will to fight. And with that, I've scored 565 points and I've lost nothing. This can be changed. This can be abated. You don't have to lose this much. Wargame has a lot of moving parts, and that's kind of what makes it difficult to get into. Because, let's say initially, his force composition, his starting units, sometimes referred to as his opener, they were wrong. You don't need that much anti-air. You don't need that level of protection from aircraft. You just need a lot more ground units. Something like 2 squads of Rangers, 2 squads of Navy SEALs, some units capable of backing them up, like the Ontos or the LEV-25, or even 2 or 3 mortars, would have been a lot better. Bring in maybe 1 Chaparral and potentially a tank, and I would have had a much more difficult time trying to get forward as quickly as I did. On top of that, of course, you got all sorts of different decks. You can keep playing around with what deck works when. Some maps, you might have a deck that works fantastically well. Take that specific deck into a completely different map, it might not work at all. This is the trouble with Wargame. It's experience, it's doing, it's learning by doing. So if you're new to Wargame, don't beat yourself up. Keep practicing. And I know how frustrating it is to lose games, but just go, okay, let's have a look at that replay. This guy beat me with what? What was he using? How was he using his forces? Were they moving forwards? Were they moving backwards? Was he pushing? Was he flanking me somewhere? What was he doing? I have plenty of games that I lose. And I always try to go, okay, what went well? And what can I learn from the other guy? So what can I keep doing? And what should I change? What can I take away from the other player? What can I learn from him or her? Although, let's be honest, there aren't that many hers playing anyway. So this way, try to keep an open mind about Wargame. And I hope that Cesare can improve his game, and that he'll still have fun with Wargame after this battle, and that he'll continue to play. Anyway, that's the video. It turned out a bit longer than I thought, but I hope it was useful nonetheless. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, good luck on Wargame, and if you have any questions, post them down below, and I'll see if I can help you out.